record on this. So the exam is going to be posted tomorrow, and it's due next Friday. And the reason I'm having it due next Friday is because the exam is not going to be long, but you need to know the difference between race, class, gender. When it comes to gender, you need to know the difference between sex and gender and sexuality. They're different. You need to know the difference between race and ethnicity. They're different. You cannot use these terms interchangeably, not on the exam. So that's the reason why I'm going over all of these chapters this week, and preferably live. Of course, you have the pre-recorded, and I did post the class discussion up for you guys, I believe last night. So if you haven't seen it, see it, because we actually discuss it in terms like as a conversation. But if you didn't see the video I just posted up last night, I'm quickly just going to go through it. We were talking about inequalities. So in sociology, we go over these types of inequalities the most. There are 6: race, class, gender, age, disability. There's another one. We'll go over it. It's, and sexual orientation. So in the video that you guys will be watching, if you have time, I suggest just playing it in the background. If you have time to play it in the background, we won't go over specifically class inequality and economic inequality, which is, you can change those: class and economic inequality, and race inequality or racial inequality. So in our discussion on class, we just talked about economic inequality and how the functionalist, the conflict, and the symbolic interactionist would view those things. The functionalist simply is going to say economic inequality is a good thing. It is beneficial. It sounds weird. And if you were talking to somebody who looks at things from those lenses, they're not going to be like, wow, it's great that poor people are poor. Nobody talks like that, okay? But there are going to give, like, a person that is looking at things from that lens is going to justify a need to have, this hierarchy in society. Poor people are good, or the working class people are good for certain types of jobs, and that's okay. The middle class is good for certain types of jobs, and that's okay. And then the wealthier people, they hold these types of jobs, and that's okay. So if the functionalists can say things like that about economic inequality, you can imagine how messed up they're going to think about other types of inequality. And again, they're not going to be blunt. At least I don't. In the last 4 years, yeah, people are more blunt. Okay, so they might. So we ended off. So that was the functionalist. The conflict perspective is going to say that this type of inequality is harmful. It actually doesn't benefit most people in society. It only benefits those people who hold the higher tiers of society. So having economic inequality only benefits those who are in wealthier and more elite classes, not necessarily those who are working poor or middle class individuals. Sound good? And an example that people gave in last class was, look at how the economic gap between the wealthy and elite and the poor grew this past year with your and I'm not talking about millionaires. Not that I'm saying that millions isn't a lot, but a lot of your faculty almost make 6 figures. And I'm going to tell you that's not a lot, especially if you live in Massachusetts. You are poor. I don't want to say you are poor, but the cost of living is ridiculous out here. Okay, so $1 million is really nothing compared to what Jeff Bezos made, Bill Gates made, Mark Zuckerberg is making. I don't know if any of you are on Clubhouse or anything like that, but it's that new app where you can talk to people around the world via like this voice kind of technology. The money that they made in this past 6 months that they've been operating is ridiculous. Okay, so yeah, economic inequality benefits them. They were able to make trillions. But for those of us who are working class and middle class individuals, economic inequality is a struggle. It is hard. Most of us are living paycheck to paycheck. Okay. And then the symbolic interactionist perspective, this is more micro. So this perspective actually makes you look at your own circumstances and your own situation, right? So although the functionalist and the conflict perspective is going to say, the functionalist is going to be like, this is beneficial. We need economic inequality. Conflict is going to be like, it's not beneficial. It's actually harmful. The symbolic interactionist is going to sit back, think of their own personal situation, right? I'm the type of person who typically agrees all the time with the conflict perspective, but there are moments where I don't. And that's where the symbolic interactionist perspective gives way. So although I wasn't able to make millions this fall or this year, 2020, I'm talking about 2020, I was able to like economically thrive in 2020 like never before. Okay. And that is my situation. Financially, this was the best year I've ever had. And I'm not saying COVID should stick around, but I wouldn't mind if it stuck around. Financially, mentally, I've been screwed, right? But financially, everything's okay. And it's actually like really good for me, right? And it depends on my area. Go back to the sociological imagination, right? The area that I'm living in, it's a diverse area. There are plenty of ethnic businesses around. It's not like your typical areas in Massachusetts. So that might play a role in how I believe my life is playing out. It's more personal, the symbolic interactionist perspective. Good. Okay. So the functionalist is going to say the almost the exact same thing about racial inequality. It's beneficial. Okay. They're not going to be like racism is great. Nobody out there is being like racism is great. Although there are some people that are like that, right? But they're going to say, different races are good. They might say something like different races are good at different things. Hispanic is not a racial category. We'll just use it as an ethnic category. But if it was a racial category still to this day, Hispanics are good at gardening and cleaning. Blacks are good at being garbage collectors and things like that. That's what they're good at. So why try to break that, etc.? It sounds foul. Okay. But are there people that think that certain races are good for certain things? Yes. Okay. And if you think of, I hate bringing this up, so I'm going to bring this up with the gender discussion that we're about to have and we're going to start off with. But if you think about the man in Atlanta, Georgia, who went into the salon parlors and shot predominantly women who worked at those establishments, right? Like that's a thing that I'd be lying to say, like, so of course I'm ethnic, of course I'm racial, like a racial minority. These are stereotypes. I'm saying stereotypes for a reason that are known in my community, right? Asian women, not all, and I don't think I need to say not all. You should know that I'm not talking about all. But when you go into an Asian massage parlor, these are the things that are expected that Asian women are going to do. Okay. So they're good at certain things, etc. And I'll expand on that later. The conflict theorist is going to be like this mentality, again, is harmful. And when we start discussing masculinity, toxic masculinity, it is harmful. Okay, especially when we start fetishizing certain types of ethnic groups, which a lot of us tend to do. I'm not saying everyone, a lot of us tend to do in the United States without even necessarily thinking about it. Okay, and then the symbolic interactionist perspective, and I'm going to share my screen with you guys. The symbolic interactionist perspective, again, is more, where is it? Is more personal, okay? You're looking at your neighborhood, your family, etc. Okay? Share screen. And you should be able to see exactly what I'm seeing right now. Any questions in regard to that? If you need to catch up, just listen to that audio that I
Excuse me,
posted up yesterday.
Professor. I have a question.
Hold on. Who is that? Because I thought there were, oh, is that Royden?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
So, this, I don't know if this is like relates to what we're talking. I mean, it does.
Go
But do you
ahead.
have to like apply the functionalist perspective into these type of like I guess conflicts like racial, injustice and stuff like that? Because like how you're explaining it,
Mm-hmm.
um, based on their point of view, you're saying that it's beneficial for society, but
Mm-hmm.
like, obviously I don't see how it could be beneficial. So to me, it's like an illogical point of view. But I see the conflict point of view and then
Mm-hmm.
the interactionalist. So I feel like they do, make sense. But from a functionalist point of view, I feel like it's kind of irrelevant. Like, and it's also a theory, right? So
It's a,
the
yeah,
function, it's a theory. So theories don't work for everything. So I
true.
feel like where like people who do believe in that stuff for like the functionalists, they're just trying to force a belief. I believe at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not really
Yeah.
like it's not logical because like how can uh race benefit anybody? And like
No, and I agree with you. But there are people that actually think that race benefits them. And they won't necessarily, and that's why I'm saying if they won't necessarily say it that way, because it's crazy. But think of people who want to keep the the hierarchies. If you read the chapter, they give you this image of this rock, and there are layers in society. Hopefully, you guys don't think that anyone is better than, I hope. I don't know you guys, but hopefully, you don't think you're better than anyone else, right? But there are individuals in society who do. Who are some of those people racially who think that they're better than others?
I mean, it could be the what is it, the majority culture, so like the white male, that's like one of them.
And I'm
uh
not saying all white males, right? I'm
no,
talking about specific extremists. So I'm not talking about, white males that sit in our classroom. I mean, I'm sure they're not going around being like, we're the ultimate race. I don't know
no,
everyone.
I was just referring to because in one of the lectures, it was
Mhm.
like you were talking about, oh, I forgot the last chapter that we watched. It was intersectionalism
Yeah, intersectionality.
where you were talking about like identity markers and like some
Mhm.
people have more advantages. So that's why I was referring to like the white male is like the top, and then
Yeah, yeah. So it's not logical. I will say that the functionalist perspective is not logical in a lot of aspects. Race is one of them. I don't like, if you think race benefits people, like, it doesn't. It really doesn't. So I do agree with you, Royden. But this is just one, it's a theory. It's a theory exactly as we've been saying, and it's one of the lenses to look at things from. That's it.
okay. Yep. Okay, I understand. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to like to see if like I wasn't like thinking something else. I don't
Oh
know.
no. Like the conflict perspective, I would hope that I usually look at things from a symbolic interactionist perspective. That's just me. I'm a sociologist as well. The conflict perspective is then the second one that I'm always like, okay, that makes sense. Like inequality, period. I don't care what the inequality is, somebody is always at the bottom. And that's not right. And oftentimes at the bottom because of things that they can't control. Okay. But then the functionalist, like one of the examples of the functional, like, let me just go back quick and then we'll go to gender. But the functionalist, when it comes to economic inequality, right? Um, it's not bad that a CEO gets paid $400,000 a day, right? Different jobs, different pay and rewards. This keeps people striving for more. Sorry, you guys are in the way, and bettering themselves. These highly rewarded positions are the most beneficial to society anyways. It's important that those who are skilled take those most rewarded positions as they can do those jobs. Therefore, maintaining an ongoing system of economic inequality is necessary and inevitable. So people looking at things from the functionalist perspective are sometimes going to say, you know what, like Jeff Bezos, like his job is one of the most important jobs in the world. He deserves to get paid like $1 million a day. You know, like it's the most rewarded position, you know, it's a tough position, he can do it, etc. But there are other jobs in the world, some of them you guys could think off the top of your head, that we say as an American society are very important, but they are the most, like these people get paid the least in society. How does the functionalist explain that? Can any of you guys think of positions that are praised, but people in these positions don't get rewarded as much?
I could maybe like certain like police officers and stuff like that.
Definitely. Police officers. I mean, in Massachusetts, if you're a police officer, you're pretty paid well. You're pretty much paid well, but New Hampshire, not so much. Who else?
Doctors.
Doctors. A lot of people like, and I'm not saying that being a doctor doesn't benefit you in the long run, but think about the amount of debt that these individuals have to get out of before they can make bank. A lot of people think that nurses are thriving in this economy right now. Okay. Some are. Traveling nurses are definitely. My sister, she's not a traveling nurse, you know, but she's working her way towards that. Okay. Not so much. The people who even like, so my dad's a farmer. Dude's not getting paid as much as he should be, especially if you are supplying food to the world.
Yeah.
Okay. So the functionalists can't explain that. Brenda, do you have anything to say or no?
No,
Oh, okay.
I just listened. Sorry.
Okay. But do we get the functionalist? I don't want to dismiss the functionalist perspectives because there are times where I will agree with the functionalist perspective. I will always say that if you, what is that saying in policing? If you do the crime, you pay the time.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, I love that. Definitely, you know, but do all people serve the same time when they do the same crime?
Yeah, but there you have people who were convicted wrongly of doing something and are serving time that they don't deserve to serve.
Exactly. But a functionalist, again, to a functionalist, things are black and white. It's either this or that, and that's it. There is no gray. And what's beautiful about the conflict and the symbolic is that there is a gray area. Okay. Let's do the oh, does this go all into intersections of race? Okay, so I have to pull up another slide for a quick second. Did I give you guys the slides?
No.
Not
I didn't see them. For this chapter?
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but you might have.
Okay, hold on just a second, guys. I got a new computer because my thing was acting like crazy. Hold on just a second. Stop share. Okay. And then you guys still see me though, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then I didn't give you guys this, which is strange. Okay. hold on just a second. Pardon. Intrasoc, PPT, and okay. Here it is. Okay. I will give this to you. I'm gonna send it to you actually. Send it on Blackboard. It's just opening up quickly. So race, class, this PowerPoint that I am sharing with you guys right now covers gender, aging, and sexuality. I hope you guys can see that. Can you guys see this?
Yeah. The systems of inequality.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So quickly, just going over 12 and 13, chapters 12 and 13 in your textbook: gender, sex, sexuality, aging, and the elderly. Okay. Again, this is review. You guys have this, or if you don't, I'll just make sure. But in the United States, many people are treated as subordinate or inferior on the basis of class, race, all of those types of inequality we just went over. These people can also be subject to discriminatory treatment. Again, this is known, or the way we analyze this is known as social stratification. Okay, so we're going to go over gender, age, gender, sex, sexuality, age inequality, and I kind of, I don't want to say bypass able-bodiedness, but it's short, so we'll get into that as well. Okay. So hopefully you guys already know, because most of you are very young, but gender inequality, right, is a system in which males and/or females are perceived and treated as unequal, usually characterized by belief, sorry for the spelling error, but a belief in male supremacy. Make sure you know the difference between sex and gender. Remember, sex is biological. When we are talking about someone's sex, we're talking to them in reference of their chromosomes, so their makeup. So XX and XY chromosomes. So this refers to the physical or physiological differences between men and women. Okay, that's sex. Not to be confused with gender. Gender is a social construct, just like race is, just like ethnicity is. And it's a social construct because this term is one that is created and therefore can also be destroyed or changed up or switched up, okay? So it's a social construct, and it refers specifically to behaviors, personal traits, and social positions that society attributes to being male or being a female. So gender is something that we do, okay? It's a way that we behave. We know the difference, right? Hopefully, okay? So a person's sex, as determined by his or her biology, does not always correspond with their gender. So sex and gender are not interchangeable, okay? So most of you have seen people who might identify themselves as a tomboy, right? So biologically, these people could be either male or female, but their gender does not match, at least to us, does not match their physical sex. Understood?
Yes.
In the US, inequality amongst the genders is justified by the idea that biology is destiny. Side note, okay? I, of course, am lecturing as though there are only two sexes exist, or two genders exist. We should know, and if you don't know, you'll know after this, right? There is more than two sexes. There are more than two genders, okay? For any of you who are interested, the Five Sexes Revisited talks about male, female, and then we have individuals who fall under the umbrella of intersex, okay? So hermaphrodites, hermaphrodites, and hermaphrodites. And the only distinction between those three is the chromosome makeup, XXX, XXY, XYY, okay? And then gender, of course, like if you haven't been paying attention, like the amount of people who identify as queer and slash or transgender or transvestite or even that's sexuality, transgender, transvestite, or queer that have been getting murdered on a daily basis. Okay, so there are more than five sexes, more than five genders. Okay, I think the statistic was like 1 in every 1,000 or 10,000 people is born intersex and don't actually know until a certain milestone in their life. So puberty hits, or they try to conceive with their partners and then they find out. Okay. So the ideology that there are clear biological differences, going back to the binary, the ideology that there are clear biological differences between men and women, and therefore there is some automatic sexual division of labor, is this whole thing based on biology is destiny. So for example, since women carry children, okay, there are automatically, or women are automatically assumed to be better at caretaking, better at child rearing, etc. Since the male body is naturally physically stronger than women, and I'm not saying that women can't get as strong as men, but men have, it's easier, for instance, for men to put on muscle than women. So therefore there's the assumption that, you know, men are better for certain types of work than women are. Okay. And I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just stating it. Okay. Any questions on the difference between sex and gender? We're good. Okay. So male patriarchy. And of course, if you have been watching the news, again, people being like, let's take down the patriarchy, etc. Male patriarchy is defined as a system in which male dominance is considered a natural right, simply because you are born a man, simply because you are born biologically a man, okay? It's assumed that you have certain rights and you should keep those certain rights, etc. Okay? It's led to what we know as sexism, okay? Sexism, just like racism, is subordination of a person on the basis solely on their sex, okay? Just like racism, sexism operates at the level of the personal and institutional. Last week's lecture, I talked about why in sociology, we don't really, it's not that we don't care about personal racism. For things to change, we really need to look at things from an institutional level. People can change, the individual can change, but the systems that we are born into are much harder to change. So it's hard to change, you know, government like policies, the state. It's hard to change religious institutions. It's hard to change educational institutions, etc. Okay, so again, the sexist, you know, can the sexist be harmful? Yes, but again, like I said, they can change, but the institution is much harder to change. I'm not saying the institution is never going to change, it's harder. So for instance, women have been allowed to get educated similarly to men since the 1960s. We're talking about the women's rights movement, okay? However, does that mean that the sexism that women face in certain parts of higher education all like automatically disappear? Just because women can be, or, take engineering class, does that mean that they won't face, issues of sexism? Yes or no?
Oh, no, it doesn't mean that they won't.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they won't. Okay. In fact, like women, yes, they're, flying into these engineering majors, but having a hard time acquiring their degree because of certain things that they face within that major. Okay. Same thing with me. Like I am and I'm just using this as a race aspect, but trying to get you to understand it. But just because I'm allowed to be a professor at NECC does not mean I don't encounter racism at NECC on a daily basis. Okay. I'm not talking about the personal, right? Because it's not like my colleagues are saying, F you, or, saying that you're Black, you shouldn't be teaching. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there are certain places, like in terms of promotion, that are going to be a lot harder for me to acquire because of the body that I was born into. Do we get it?
Yes.
Okay. Back. So patriarchy, again, going back to patriarchy and how it's defined, only benefits men in some ways or males in some ways, and oftentimes not all men. What do I mean by this? Are we all the same? Not that we're men not that we're all men, right? But like, does patriarchy, do these sexist systems benefit all men the same?
No.
No. Why not? And this gets into the intersectionality. Why not?
Well, I would suggest that there's some influence with regard to race and sexual orientation.
Yeah, race, sexual
Class.
orientation, class, able-bodiedness. Like, if you don't have all of those, like all the top tiers checked off, you're probably not benefiting from these hierarchies as well as other individuals. Okay, so when we talk about, it's hard, so some people ask me whether or not I'm a feminist. I will never say that I'm a feminist. That's not to say that I don't agree with the ideology of feminism. I do, right? Mm-hmm. But the way that it's been used, it's portrayed, the way that people believe about it has kind of tainted it, So again, when we're talking about, eliminating the patriarchy, it's not to, just scrap men at the top from everything. No, it's to give people access and opportunity, regardless of race, class, gender, etc., to give everyone a fair shot. Equity, access, opportunity. Get it?
Yeah. I also wanted to add, I think there may be some misrepresentation as to what the feminist movement is about.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, because I would say that the media and other ways of how people get their information definitely misrepresent something to cater to their political agenda, I could say.
There is. And I think, again, I feel like the past 4 years, and I'm not even saying it's the Trump presidency at all. I think it's the past 4 years that really have just like confused people as to what it is. Like, and there's different there's different branches of feminism. But a lot of the people I encounter are just kind of like, women want to do this, women want to destroy this. And it's just kind of like, yo, this shit benefits you too. And it's just that aspect gets thrown out, or people don't see it. And again, the media will show you what they want to show you. And I think it's very manipulative in that way. Sound good? But I do agree with feminist ideology.
Do you think that, you know, we go through all this and we read about it, and history has obviously repeated itself on many occasions, but do you think, I personally don't think it will, but do you think at any point in our life or life to come, there will be no such thing as any kind of racial, sexual discrimination, anything to that matter, where there's a hierarchy of class, race? I don't think there ever will be. I think it's almost like it's embedded in our DNA. That's how I feel.
I really think it is. Honestly, like, it's so crazy because I was just talking about, like, I think we find, I feel, I don't know. I feel like our country, and it's not just our country, it's people who are comfortable knowing where everyone stands, are comfortable with classifying people. And I think that's where it becomes dangerous. Like, look at, especially now with the vaccine. I'm gonna tell you guys right now that I'm using this as an example, but I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. Okay?
Me either.
I'm not
You're
getting
not the only one.
And I'm not forcing it on anyone not to get it. Okay, I'm just not getting it. There's reasons why. I could tell you the reasons. One of it is that at my age, like, I want to have kids, and I'm at an age where, like, if I choose to have it, like, already I'd be high risk in my pregnancy. I don't want a vaccine to enhance the factors. Like, I don't want to deal with it. On top of that, it's not FDA approved. On top of that, you know, like, any mRNA, like, vaccines, they're gene therapy. Like, I'm not trying to, although it's not going to manipulate your genes permanently, like, I don't even want to take the risk of it even altering it at all. And I'm not going to take it. But do people think that I am an anti-vaxxer? Yes, and that's not the case. It's just that it usually takes 3 years for these vaccines to get approved. I just want to wait. I just want to wait. That's it. You know, but to have people already, you know, what is it? The Miami Heat, they're going to set up a vaccination, like, vaccinating, like, if you're vaccinated, you sit here. If you're not vaccinated, you sit, like, we like to divide people, period. And I think it's dangerous. I do think it's dangerous. You know? So I think if it's not race, it's going to be something else. If it's not sexual orientation, it's going to be something else. If it's not, you know, gender, it's going to be something else. And I think
it just breaks down to power. If you really think about it, it breaks down to, like you said, the hierarchy, like, you know, breaking down to who wants to be on top.
Yeah.
And by breaking down everybody else in different categories, I think it puts them in perspective.
It's crazy. It's just, it's wild to me, because it's just kind of like, even like the common thing, like the common sense things that we learned in, like, elementary and middle school, like, in regards to germs and viruses, have completely gone out the window in the past, like, year. And I'm just kind of like, yo, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. But you guys should be eligible soon. Like, I think the new date is by April 19th. Everyone, or a majority of the population in the United States, should be able to get vaccinated, at least the first dose. So if you're over the age of 18, are you guys gonna get it? Roden, Emma, Tyler?
I'll probably get it.
You'll probably get it?
Yeah.
I'm getting mine today, the first shot.
Yeah, like,
I'm going to get mine when it becomes available.
Honestly, like, so although I'm not anti-vax, I'm just waiting, just because I told you guys already, like, literally, like, I want to have kids in the next year. Like, I'm not trying to risk anything. And a lot of the data around specifically female pregnancy is not out there yet. So that's the major reason why I'm holding off. But I would love to know like your experiences around it. Yeah, you know, just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know anything that's happened severely to anyone, but I don't know. It's just weird because like my sister lives in another country and the way that they're dealing with it over there is complete. It's like a 180. It's a 180. So it's just, it's, I don't know. A lot of it is, you know, it just causes confusion in my head. I'm just like, why are we dealing with like this? And they're not dealing with it like that. It's weird. It's weird. But everything's situational. But yeah, like, yeah, I'll hit you guys up because I really want to know, like, did it hurt? Like, I'm not a shot person anyways. So like, does it hurt? Is it just a sore arm? Did you get sick? Did you get hot flashes, etc.? One of my friends, she got it and she felt like she got a severe hot flash one day. It's the Moderna. And if I were to get it, I would just go for the Johnson & Johnson, but that's just me. What are you getting, Elia? Which one?
I was supposed to get the Johnson & Johnson yesterday, and then I went, and you have to be 18 for that one. So I got scheduled for the Pfizer one today because I'm 17.
Okay. Yeah, because the Johnson & Johnson one is closer to like just a good old vaccine. And that's what I was just kind of like.
Yeah, it was just a one and done.
That's what I want to get, you know, so yeah. But can we divide people? Going back to Brenda's thing, I think there's always going to be something to divide us, period. Something. If it's not race, it's going to be this. If it's not this, it's going to be that, etc. So I don't think we'll ever, honestly, I don't think things will ever necessarily be fair. That's not to say that they can't, but I think we need to get people on the same, like everyone on the same wavelength. Sound good? So a functionalist is going to say that these types of inequality, when it comes to your book, and your book gives you good examples, right? When it comes to sex and gender, right? There are certain, it's beneficial. Like these systems were set in place for a reason. So your book, the functionalist perspective in the book gives you those reasons, starting back, you know, to, I forget when, but giving you a historical reason as to why, you know, it's good to have this dichotomy when it comes to sex and gender in the US, okay? The conflict perspective is going to be like, it is harmful, period. And then the symbolic interactionist perspective, again, it's micro. You yourself. Sound good? We good with that? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So sexual orientation, different from sex and gender, okay? Sexual orientation is defined as a system of inequality in which members with a particular sexual orientation are thought of and treated as less worthy than others. Today, prejudicial attitudes and institutionalized discrimination are widespread against individuals labeled as specifically homosexual. I don't like to use the term homosexual. I just find it very like medicalized. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't want somebody to call me like a negroid. And that's why like I don't like homosexual. Like I don't like even using Caucasian when I'm referencing white people or Caucasoids. It's just too medicalized. So I stay away from homosexual. But again, today's prejudicial attitudes and institutionalized discrimination are widespread against individuals who are labeled as gay or lesbian. This is referred to as heterosexism. So systematic disadvantage embedded in our social institutions, offering power to those who conform to the heterosexual orientation while simultaneously disadvantaging those who don't. The ideology of heterosexism condemns homosexuality as abnormal and lends support to a system of inequality based on sexual orientation in the US. And then there are also mistaken notions about homosexuality that contribute to widespread prejudicial attitudes and the discriminatory practices against gay males and lesbians, okay? So when we're talking about sexual orientation, therefore we're talking about, you know, a certain type of sexual attraction to, okay, an emotional attraction to, etc. So a person's physical, mental, emotional, and sexual attraction to a particular sex, male or female. Sound good? And then again, we already know what heterosexuality is, gay and lesbian. Then there's bisexuality. There's also asexuality, and there's also pansexuality. I suggest if gender, sex, and sexual orientation interest you, Christy Arford in the sociology department here at NECC has a really good gender and sex class that she offers every single fall. So if that does interest you, please go ahead and take it. But again, when it comes to sexual orientation, there is a spectrum, okay? So the functionalist, I want you guys to help me with this. What would a functionalist say about individuals who experience discrimination based on their sexual orientation? What would a functionalist say?
That it's beneficial for society.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, they wouldn't be like, you know, it's beneficial that you're like, how do you
I'm a better person.
I'm not saying that you're wrong, Royden, so don't say that. So don't think that, right? They wouldn't necessarily, like, it's, if we're talking to like a real, like our next door neighbor, right? Are they really gonna come out and be like, yo, it's great that you're getting discriminated against? Like, what would they say that would come off functionalist?
Maybe like if you want to say like to reproduce or like to carry like this needs to happen, like, you know, people need to be heterosexual.
Yes, 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 exactly. What else might they say? That's a good example. That's a great example. What else might they say? Anyone else?
That like someone has to like be home to like take care of the kids and stuff.
Yeah. Anyone else? So when and this is a morbid example, trigger warning. So if you need to go like this, but I remember when I was working on my doctorate at UConn, and there was like an uptick in suicides for some reason out there, specifically around, you know, students, young youth, etc., that were committing suicide. That happened to be predominantly like gay or trans. And one of the things that you would hear out there, you know, I was in Stores, Connecticut, you know, like, why would you ever, trigger warning. So one of the things that I was discussing with a friend, obviously we're not friends anymore, but like, one of the things that they said was like, why would you ever choose to come out of the closet in a time like this? Like, you should have known better. That is something that is very functionalist. You know, stay in that closet. It is your fault, etc. Okay? So those are functionalists. Again, there are people out there like that. Okay. And again, they're not going to be like, it's beneficial, it's beneficial. They're going to say things that sound very foul. Okay. To some, to me, they sound foul. You know, for somebody to be like, you know, God made Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve. That's functionalist. Okay. Do you get it? Do you guys get it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. The conflict theorists. Okay, these individuals, they might outrightly say, you know, it's harmful. This thing, you know, like, you know, this inequality based on sexual orientation is not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. And usually we'll provide you with data and facts and all of that kind of stuff. And then the symbolic interactionist perspective, again, look at yourself. Use your sociological imagination. What is the area that you're living in? So situation matters. You know, how do you feel about, you know, inequality based on sexual orientation? Have you looked at things from the functionalist? Have you looked at things from the conflict perspective? And then make your own opinion around that. Good. Age inequality is a system of inequality in which members of a particular age group are thought of and treated as less worthy than those of another. Typically, when we discuss ageism, we're referring to people who are older. So I would say anybody who's like 65 plus. Aging is a natural process. However, it can be interpreted negatively. There are myths and stereotypes about growing old that support a system of age inequality in the US that essentially victimizes elders. What do you guys think about old people? Literal question, like this is the question I'm actually asking you. What do you guys think about the elderly? Do any of you have grandparents?
Yeah, I live with my grandparents.
Okay. What are some stereotypes out there about elderly people?
That they're not like capable of having fun or enjoying life activities.
Yeah. What else?
I mean, you could say like they're like babies again, essentially. That's how people think about it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, my parents aren't old, but my parents are they are old. They're not, it's weird. So they deal with a lot of health issues, but they are essentially like babies again. Okay. And when it comes to age, specifically age inequality here, this is one of the ones, and again, people aren't going to talk like this, but this is a theory that goes under ageism. So this is disengagement theory. So with myths and stereotypes portraying elderly people as a homogeneous, senile, unproductive, gray-haired mass in a spiraling state of physical and mental deterioration, proponents of disengagement theory argue that elders should actually withdraw from the labor force and other activities for the sake of society, for the good of society. If you go back to chapter 1, Emile Durkheim talks about the life cycle, right? People are born, people become productive citizens in society and eventually die, okay? So with this disengagement theory, or people who agree with this theory, right? These individuals have already lived their life. Right now, they should actually just, you know, once you get old, you need to like stop driving your car. You need to stay at home and off the streets. You need to go to a nursing home, etc. Okay. Now, the opposite of this is activity theory, because if you guys don't have elderly parents, or don't have grandparents, they're still useful. So activity theory, it says the exact opposite. So how can elderly people benefit society? How can our grandparents still be useful for society today?
I would say, was someone else going to talk?
No, I think you're good.
Okay, I thought someone else was going to talk. I would say that they help us raise our children. I mean, I remember my grandma helped raise me when my mom was constantly at work. I mean, I didn't really have a father to do that job, so my grandma took the role of that to help me, you know, become an adult.
They can still raise children. So like, I don't know if any of you guys have like nephews, nieces, young brothers and sisters who are in daycare right now, but the daycare that my siblings used to go to, my nieces used to go to when they were here in Malden, they actually had like elderly people come in from one of the Asian centers here and like literally like just play with them, engage with them in their language. And it was like the most interesting thing. And the kids were just like, oh, know, like it was like the cutest thing. It's the cutest thing, but they can, okay? Just because somebody ages, and again, aging is a natural process, doesn't mean that they are completely incapable of doing things. Like for instance, Market Basket, I think is one of, I've never worked for Market Basket, but I do think it looks like they're one of the most fair types of employers out here. And I think their people are unionized too, which actually kind of protects them. But have all types of people bagging, stocking, working as cashiers, all types of age groups, you know, so they can still function. They definitely can still function, okay? So disengagement theory would be the functionalist perspective when it comes to age inequality. Activity theory is the conflict perspective. And then the symbolic interactionist perspective, you sitting back. So one of the things, for instance, in my situation, we actually had to take my mother's license away. Okay, so it's not that it's not that she can't drive. She would probably kill someone if she drove, like hit someone. So we actually took her license away. We went to the DMV and we're just kind of like, she cannot drive, but she can do everything else. Okay. So aging, again, natural process. But disengagement theory, the functional is essentially the functionalist perspective. Activity theory is the conflict perspective. And then look at your own situations to get to that symbolic interactionist perspective. Again, it's micro, it's from your lens. And then the last one is able-bodiedness and inequality. So this is just a system of inequality in which members with physical and or mental disabilities are thought of and treated as less worthy than others. Individuals with disabilities are instantly turned into victims in the US. So just because, for instance, I had one student a couple years back who, I think we were going through a lecture on some kind of like mental disability, and all she said was that she was bipolar, and instantly like the head shot to the back of the classroom, you know, like instantly, like people thought something wrong of her, you know. So I would just like encourage, like I want you guys to like think of any types of biases like you might hold and things like that. But ableism justifies prejudice and discrimination directed towards those who have physical and mental impairments. So the functionalist, it's an example of the functionalist when it comes to able-bodiedness. And this is this kind of goes back into the past. What did we used to do with people who were seen as mentally impaired in the US? What do we do to them today?
You put them in psych wards.
Exactly. And for disabilities that literally don't necessarily need to have you like stuck in a psych ward, but you simply just have to have, you know, the proper medication and the proper doses for. Okay. Even when it came to, what's it called? We got rid of a school here in Boston. It was like for the deaf and the mute. Like it was shut down a couple of years ago. And these kids were like shoved into classrooms, like without the proper, like the teachers didn't have the proper training. It was just a shit show. But again, a functionalist would just house them. Like you, just like your sexual orientation, just like your age, you know, like it's unfortunate you were born this way. It's unfortunate you have a mental disability or a physical disability, but society has no use for you. So we can put you and house you in this place. We do it to criminals all the time. We can put you in this area. Okay, this is where you guys belong. So you don't disturb us. It's for the good of society. Okay, The conflict perspective, these individuals, although may be mentally impaired or have mental disabilities, or physical disabilities, does not mean that they are not beneficial to society, okay? And then the symbolic interactionist perspective is just the, the symbolic interactionist perspective is, again, using your own situation, sociological imagination, and just taking it down to a micro lens, okay? Thursday, I'm going to go into intersectionality and how all this works. And then I should have covered. I'm gonna open a flip grid also in a couple of moments on just a couple of things that deal with race and ethnicity. Also pay attention if any of you guys have have access to cable television. I can't even find my phone, but it's like ringing. Pay attention to the George Floyd case. Also pay attention to the Colorado, was it in Colorado? Everything happens in Colorado, yeah. The Colorado supermarket shooting that happened. And this is just a quiz just to make sure that you guys are reading quickly. I just wanna ask you guys you guys know the difference between race and ethnicity, right?
Yes.
Okay. Quick thing. So what was the race, okay, of the Colorado shooter?
I believe white.
White. What's his ethnicity?
I think he's Arabic.
But from Syria.
Middle Eastern?
Yeah, he's from Syria.
Okay.
But yeah, okay, make sure you guys know the difference, okay? One of the things that I do find interesting is that when it does come to a shooter that is white, but specifically from one of these Arabic, Middle Eastern countries, the news tends to not racially classify them like they would for any other person, right? But really stick to their ethnicity. So Tyler, you were in the last discussion, but I think I mentioned the Boston bombers.
Yes, you did.
The Tsarnaev brothers. Essentially, they're white kids that grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, weren't from Massachusetts, but grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Right.
But one of the things that allows them to not be classified as white, they are, is their name. And I find it just very, very interesting because, again, I say I'm the type of person that likes to keep the same energy. Like, I didn't create this definition of race, but it's there. But when it comes to certain individuals, we don't classify them as what they should be. And I just find it very interesting that that's what we're doing to the Colorado shooter, but pay attention to that. Pay attention to the Derek Chauvin case, the George Floyd case and the outcome. I kind of think I already know what the outcome is going to be. I think they're just trying to soften the blow. And yeah, pay attention to those two. And I will upload the flip grids in just a couple of moments. Sound good?
Yeah.
Again, flip grids, if you have your 8 quizzes already, you can continue to do the quizzes. Anything extra above and beyond only helps your exam grades, specifically your lowest exam grades. The flip grids count as participation points, and wherever I can put those extra points, I'm gonna add them to your lowest grades. Sound good?
Yes.
Sound good? Okay, just make sure I do shut off access to the flip grids 2 weeks before the end of the semester.
Okay.
Okay, so you can do them whenever, but 2 weeks before the end, just make sure you have something. Okay?
So when's technically the last day of school?
Huh?
When's the last day of school?
May.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know. It's somewhere in May, like the first or the second week of May. I can tell you like later.
I think it's like May 15th is the final day.
Is that long?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
At least that's when my existentialism class ends.
Okay.
I'm just going based off of when my.
Is that Meredith's?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's an awesome class. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great class. If anyone
Yeah.
wants to take it, I highly recommend existentialism.
Yeah. Like I sat in on it like a year or two ago.
Yeah, she's a great lecturer.
Yeah, amazing. Sound good, guys?
Professor, I did have a separate question aside.
I
from
got
this
your
class.
email, and I think do you want me to send those out today? Is that
Yeah,
it?
if you were able to. It's no rush. It's just I was trying to get that through, and I messaged.
Yeah, no, I could send them out today.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Because it's important. So that's really important.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Question.
Okay. There's two of you. Okay, go ahead.
So for the test that we have coming up, is that on everything we've learned so far, or just like?
No. So it's on, let me stop sharing this so I just can look at the Blackboard real quick. So it's on weeks 6 through week 10.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So socialization, deviance, crime, and social control, race, class, and gender, all those types of inequality. And then intersectionality, honestly, intersectionality is the same as racial inequality. It just takes a different look at how having multiple types of inequality as an individual will influence you different than someone else who is just white, or someone else who is white and a woman, or white and a male, etc. It's just a twist on it. That's it.
Gotcha.
So it's not, trust me, it's not bad. It's shorter than the last exam. You just need to make sure you have these specific definitions like the back of your hand. Okay, so it's just socialization. How do we learn to be who we are today? You know, how do we learn all of these things? How do we learn to be men? How do we learn to be women? How do we learn to, etc., right? And then race, all the types of inequality we've just went over from last week to now. Intersectionality, I'm going to go over on Thursday. You'll have the exam tomorrow. Again, it's not due until next Friday. And that's because I want to go over intersectionality with you guys, because there's a lot of intersectionality on the exam. And then I will briefly go over crime, deviance, and social control. It's not bad. I promise you. I wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't.
Do you give us the same options as the others? I know this is exam opposed to quizzes, but as far as, you know, stopping and starting and
yeah, no,
multiple turns.
Of course. And because there is no written portion on this exam, you'll always have 2 shots. So with this one, like if you decide to do this, I'm going to open it tomorrow. If you decide to do it tomorrow, you will still get another shot. You get one more shot at it.
Okay.
It's the highest one. And you can stop and return to it whenever you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not trying to screw over anyone with this class. Like,
Thank you.
I'm trying to make it easy.
We all want to pass.
You all will. And honestly, like you guys have been doing good in all my classes. So
Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else? No? Okay.
Can you stay behind so I can ask you a question apart from the class?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, Professor.
No problem.
Thank you.
Have a good